Okay, this is about if you don't support reparations, you're a white supremacist. Not only are you a white supremacist, you are disgusting lowlife who deserves to be enslaved. If you are an African American, if you are a person of African descent, if you have any ties, lineage of a person who was quote unquote enslaved as in taken into bondage, forced to work against their labor, or otherwise not having any freedoms in the country you have reside in, or that have ancestry that has had people not had rights that they reside in. Unless you are that person, you don't get to speak about slavery or reparations. And if you do, or if you try, you should be enslaved. Every African American, listen to me. If you even hear anybody speak against reparations, you should enslave them. There is nothing wrong with you enslaving them and taking them as reparations. If folks are acting so dumb, immature, idiotic, asinine, and making bad faith arguments, and trying to gaslight, and trying to actually skew and manipulate facts and actual documented evidence of slavery, and actually trying to make it seem as if those in slavery weren't that disadvantaged or that their lives don't matter, you have the authority to enslave that person. That person making that erroneous, precarious, and ludicrous argument. They deserve to be enslaved. And watch how they act. Watch how they act when I say that. Watch how they act when you go to enslave them. They don't want to be a slave, but they don't mind making others slave, which is in itself the reason for slavery to exist. No, Africans didn't sell other Africans into slavery. That doesn't even make any logical sense. The, most of the quote unquote African folks that are in the specific regions that kidnapped Africans were taken from have a very height advantage, or a very high disadvantage, meaning the ludicrous nature of it, African building a boat and selling all the way to America just to quote unquote sell some slaves to Americans, make no logical sense. That gives a handicap to Europeans, that makes Europeans seem less capable of doing anything. Europeans aren't incapable of doing evil. They do it all the time, literally all the time. Let me repeat, Europeans aren't incapable of doing evil by themselves. They don't need any help to do evil. No one needs help to do evil. No one needs any permission to do anything against anyone else. No one needs the permission of a parent to molest a child. No one needs permission of a spouse to sexually assault a member of that spouse. No one needs permission of doing that. So the ludicrous and asinine nature that somehow Africans are just as culpable as slavery is a white supremacist argument made by many white supremacists all across the land. They do not want to pay what they owe those people that they committed crimes against. And using felonious and ludicrous arguments against slavery can have an otherwise opposite and unwanted effect. Trust me, you can be enslaved anytime, anywhere, any place. People don't like hearing that. People don't like hearing the other side of the story, where those who fought against slavery won. They won everything, and those slavers were made to pay one way or another. But that isn't taught in European schools. That isn't taught. That wasn't taught where the Dutch were, where the Norwegians were, where the British were, Britain Cooley, where the French, Spanish, Spain, Spic, and Portuguese were. They weren't taught that. They didn't teach themselves that, but they love teaching about how they freed the slaves. They don't ever like talking about when those who didn't like slaves uprose, or those who were against slavery uprose. They don't like hearing that. Instead, they like wanting to teach you that they freed the slaves, which is a lie. They didn't free the slaves. Europeans did not free slaves. Europeans couldn't even free themselves from the Romans. So how would they free slaves or anyone who they'd enslaved? You see, this is another irresponsible and ludicrous and irrational argument that Europeans somehow had a hand in ending slavery when they did not. They were forced to end slavery. Let me repeat what I said. Europeans did not take it upon themselves to end slavery. They were forced to end slavery. There were few, maybe less than a percentage of a percent of Caucasian Europeans who actually wanted to see slavery end. And now they make a revisionist history because they lost, because now they want to pretend like they ended slavery when nothing could be further from the truth. They didn't end slavery. Those who were enslaved freed themselves. No one took it upon themselves to end slavery. No one took it upon themselves to be that in which no one wanted to be that and have the ancestry no one wanted to have. You see, this is the sick and asinine nature of the European, to try to deflect shame and hatred for themselves as well as for the predicament that they themselves put themselves in onto others. Trust me, no person of African descent who has been through slavery should ever bear the burden or stain or otherwise shame of slavery. It's that of the European that deserves the shame of slavery, the slaver. And call them like they are. Call them by their name, slavers. That's what they are. Slavers were a thing in Europe. Europeans used to go around enslaving other Europeans all the time, everywhere. Thraldom, serfdom, that happened in Europe. That existed. Serfdom and thraldom were a thing. Look it up. It's common nature, common fact, common know-how and knowledge, common knowledge that Europeans enslaved other Europeans all across Europe. Thraldom and serfdom were commonplace around Europe and not uncommon to be taken into slavery. So the true fact that Europeans, Eurotrash, enslaved other Eurotrash has been common knowledge throughout history. It's only recently when they lost against the African, when they lost against those of African descent, then they began to remake themselves and they began to lie and pretend like they were against the side of slavery when nothing could be further from the truth. And with that thought, they never, ever, ever wanted to see anyone rise above them. Thus, that's why they began slavery in the first place. Other people had wealth, power, influence, and a monopoly on civilization. They had civilization and society. Civilization that the European destroyed. The European himself destroyed his own civilization when they kicked out the Romans who had brought it to them. So no, black people, you don't owe Europeans anything. They owe you everything. And at the very least, they owe you is reparations. And if they don't give you reparations, if they don't give you the monetary resources that they stole from you, you have every obligation to take it by force. And furthermore, these aren't just your views. These aren't your personal white trash views. These are just knee-jerk reactions to things you don't like. So piss off, white trash. These white male trash apes deserve nothing but death and hatred for all their white male trash, vicious bigotry. No PC, no political correctness. These white devils deserve nothing but death, only death. No PC, no political correctness, death, and death will come for you all.